All right. Well, welcome everyone. Good afternoon. How are we doing? Energy wise. Give me a little noise there. There you go. Coffees are in. That's good. If not, we'll wake you up now. And there's more coffee at the back, of course. Thank you very much. Oh, here we go. I have a very esteemed panel. I usually don't take notes, but today I'm making an exception. Um, my name is Navroop. I'm the founder CEO of the Digital Economist. We are a Washington, D.C. based think and do tank. We publish research on cutting edge technologies, as well as what that means for the society, for business, for policy. And we build ventures from the most promising of those research insights. So I'm really delighted to welcome you all and a very esteemed panel. Thanking first and foremost the Polish Business House, Business Hub, as well as the Ministry for Digital Affairs. And, we're going to be unfolding the digital, I guess, as a broader theme a lot more as we kind of deep dive into AI as well. So without further ado, I think all the panelists here have their mics in their hands. I will just start with my neighbor here on the left. I will just have everybody introduce themselves. I have Sebastian here, Arvinder, Himanshu, Paweł, and Dr. Kathrin. So please tell us who you are and we'll just dive in.
So, hello everybody, my name is Paweł Wrona and I'm representing proudly, obviously, Polish business as a Billennium Group CFO. And being the partner of Polish Business Hub, I thank you again for being invited here because this is a big event in the life of an economist. So for me personally, this is a very, very nice experience to be here with you guys. So we are a company basically active in IT service area. So basically with almost 2,000 people on board, we're delivering solutions and managed teams to the customers. Also, as everybody else right now, in AI space, both in public and commercial sectors. So this will be my perspective today for the panel.
Thank you very much, Paweł. Appreciate that. Please go ahead.
Sounds good. Hi, everyone. Arvind, I'm the co-founder and chief commercial. We've had to intimately face. When we started the business, there were about 5 companies in the world that were kind of touching around resilience. And just last year, there were about 500 companies. But what's different is we've had to really think about the commercialization space. We've generated over 150 million in revenue. Over the course of those 5 years, we're deployed in Australia, over 15 states in the US and in Canada as well. And what's notable is Time Magazine put us as one of the 100 most influential companies in the world last year.
That's so cool. We got a scale right here. So congratulations, Arvind. That's fantastic. Go ahead, Himanshu, please.
Well, thanks, Navroop. By the way, I highly recommend checking out their YouTube videos of their cameras detecting wildfires. That's very cool.
We're also neighbors.
Hi, everyone. My name is Himanshu Gupta. I'm the co-founder and CEO of ClimateAi. And everyone tells us, like, how much did you pay to get that name, ClimateAi? I tell them, like, zero. So we started in 2018 when climate and AI weren't as cool as space. And we are an AI platform that helps governments and companies adapt their supply chains to climate change. So while his company detects wildfires, we are the ones predicting wildfire and its impact on specific business metrics. That's what we do. And my career has always been in climate. Now as an entrepreneur, before that as policymaker. First in the government of India, I used to be in Prime Minister's office, leading modeling for emissions for Paris Climate Accord for India, and then with the Vice President Al Gore in the States. So excited to be here.
Great. Thank you so much. I love this. There's a heavy representation of sustainability and climate change, an agenda that has kind of taken a step back with the political movements last year, but we must not lose focus on it. So I'm really happy both of you are here. Thank you. Dr. Kathrin.
I'll try to summarize myself very fast. I have 9.5 hats, I always say, but I only get paid for 2.5. Number one, I'm professor for AI, quantum computing, and emerging tech, the Swiss School of Management in Geneva, and Paris School of Management, where I hold a chair. I am a co-member of the Global Future Council for Data Foundation at WEF. I'm also CEO and co-founder of Qubit Nexus. We're the first sustainable AI and data edge products with our exclusive partner Dynex, where I'm also one of the first. There's only 6 of us in the entire world, chief quantum-driven officer. We are the first ones to create the first sustainable room temperature quantum computer chip using neuromorphic computer science. Yeah, so up to 10,000 qubits. What others are talking about, the future of quantum computing and PQC that should come in 15 years, we've achieved today. So it's a pleasure to be here. And last but not least, although there's other hats, my relationship to Poland. I'm honorary ambassador to the Support Action Center JDI, which is based in Poland. We're an NGO that are fighting for everybody's digital rights. So I'm there at the United Nations Digital Council fighting for all your digital rights. And we just launched together with the support from the Polish government, also supporting what would be then Ukrainian refugees, still very important in reskilling them. And we have now launched CODI, which is combating disinformation in a digital world. And I invite everybody to have that free training, which is more important than now.
Well, I guess we could just spend this time talking with Dr. Kathrin. But
Inviting ourselves.
no, this is super interesting and super impressive. So thank you for sharing that and the perspectives you bring. I remember last year, quantum was pretty heavy here in Davos, and that kind of fizzled out a little bit for those of you who were here last year. And now it's AI, right? No matter which house you go, it's just AI. But I think we have some early perspectives and you kind of can predict where our conversation is going to go today, which is when we're talking about scaling AI, we're going to be talking about sustainability more so than anything. So with that, our final panelist for the day.
Hi, my name is Sebastian Kulczyk, and I think I know why you wanted to switch seats with me, because after all those introductions, all I can say is I'm just an investor, entrepreneur from Poland. So maybe that's why also I'm here among you today. And pretty much as entrepreneur and investor, I think I'm just trying to keep up with today's world, both on the political and economical side, with AI taking over and everything else happening. So that's pretty much for me.
Thank you. So that's good, right? We have investor perspective here as well. We have a fairly dense panel, obviously. We're going to be talking about, scaling AI, but also looking at it from an impact perspective, which we'll get to in a second, as well as when it comes to investment, what that means. I'll just share this perspective just to kind of seed the conversation here. Maybe we can open up the room as well. When we are talking about scaling AI, a lot of the conversation is about how quickly we can build data centers. And a lot of the times, what it is a climate disaster, a ticking bomb, I guess it's from a lot of the commentary that I've seen, and also a lot of work that we do on sustainability as well. So maybe I could start with Dr. Kathrin here. What is your perspective? You have 9.5 jobs, and you have an overview on a lot of these things. What is your perspective? What does scaling AI mean to you? And I'm interested in even from a more moral perspective too. Should we be scaling AI so aggressively in pursuit of efficiency and productivity gains at the cost of what that means for the planet?
That's a very important thing that we address also in Sustain Tech at the forum. So we should see at how is the AI systems working right now today. Which is a complex solution architecture where you have, number one, the entire data centers that are consuming, managing, and governing the data. Then the systems on which the machine learning, the applied mathematics, using that data get trained. And also it is a constant or real time or batch time type movement. And then the particular consumers, the front end, which can vary depending on the role. And if you see the common data centers right now, let's say we would all just simply log in to your favorite multimodal model, because they're no longer LLMs. They also produce videos, they produce pictures, etc. And you simply give one prompt. That prompt, after you press enter, it already consumed 1 liter of water. It already used a data center the size of what would be a football field, soccer football field, consuming 100,000 megawatts of power, which would be enough to give energy to the entire city of Davos for 1 month. That particular prompt. So imagine how, let's say, unsustainable it is if you have it with the regular particular data centers. And that's why we decided then at Qubit Nexus, together with Dynix, to create the first quantum sustainable chip. What happens is that if you're able to reduce that same size from a football field to the size of a regular refrigerator that everyone has at home, with still exactly the same amount of space, but it just saves 1/10,000th of that amount of energy. That is one of the steps into creating the first sustainable ecosystem. So we should be scaling if it's number one, independent of the structure that you already have. If it is for good, if it's AI for good, for protecting the particular environment as you're doing, if it's also to protect the citizens' data, be it financial data, tax data, that should still be, let's say, protected and further on developed.
Thank you very much. And I think you've touched on something that's close to my heart, which is looking at systems not in silos and not in black and white, but as a complex, interdependent organism, right? So complexity science is something that I think has a lot of the answers and ways to study the world than we actually give credit to it for. So just kind of continuing on that. So scaling AI is first of all a climate question. So maybe we can all agree to that. And then maybe and just on that, I can have Himanshu and Arvind sort of comment on this as well a little bit on what that really means. So do you agree with that statement? Let me just first ask you that actually.
Which statement about?
That scaling AI is a climate question. And I'll come back to sort of the things I've heard of the Silicon Valley with my investor friends. So Sebastian, I'm going to come back to you with that and Hal as well.
Yeah. I would put this as like, if you look at the factors of production, right, in any economics model, scaling AI is an energy question and a compute question. Mostly it's an energy question. And from you further derive from that, and hence becomes a water question as well as, a climate question after that. But I agree with what Dr. Kathrin says. But at the same time, I'm a tech entrepreneur, so I'm very optimistic about the world in general. And the reason I say that it's a technical problem that would be solved in the next 10 years, which is the energy intensity of the compute, right? Even if you look at the intensity numbers from ChatGPT and Gemini, Gemini is already like 30% lower than ChatGPT. Trying not to tell updates, okay? Oh, okay. So I was talking about the intensity numbers from ChatGPT versus Gemini. Am I audible in the back? Yes. Okay, great. Gemini is already 30% lower than ChatGPT. And in Gemini, Google sort of computes the entire life cycle of, from the chip to the data centers. So that way, I think like if Google has figured out using AI to reduce impact of AI, and this is like a work in progress, in the next 10 years, it will be solved. Now, as a former policymaker, what I worried about is the short-term pain it's causing, which is in terms of like in the US, we're already seeing the electricity rates are rising up. And some of those data centers are built in the states, which are already struggling with water issues. So what do you prioritize, drinking water versus water for data centers, right? And that's the short-term pain we need to solve from a perspective of how do we roll out these data centers, how like we are building too fast for the economy to be comfortable with it. So not only it's causing short-term pain from economic standpoint, it's also causing short-term gains from environmental standpoint.
Yeah.
I'll take a slightly different lens. So, there's the buildup of data centers, there's the impact on the environment. You've probably seen that now the Trump administration's getting the hyperscalers to not only pay for power contracts, but also water contracts in areas where they're going to be building out data centers so that they can reduce the impact on the community. But if you rewind the clock a year ago, the fires in Malibu and Pacific Palisades were the front page news just before Davos. And if you think about why AI can be applied effectively here, the way most people get notified on fires is somebody driving on a street, hiking on a road, seeing smoke. There's no way for them to know exactly where that is. And what the fire agencies do is send engines out, send a plane out. That takes 30 minutes. It could take a lot longer. And then at the same time, utility companies need to figure out, is it next to my grid? Do I need to de-energize? If you're a private landowner, do I evacuate? None of that intel is available to any of those folks in a traditional environment. We do it very differently. We're able to detect smoke or heat signatures day and night, pull in satellite data, and fundamentally change that landscape. So you're getting that visibility, it's saving lives, and it's providing visibility to a lot of stakeholders. And our largest customer base is not governments. We have a ton of government agencies that use it, but our largest customer base is the utility companies because it's tied a lot to the power demands. They have a job to go keep the grid on. When you have fires, the power goes down in those areas. But if you have visibility to exactly where it is, you can selectively de-energize. So you don't take off power for 500,000 people. You may just turn on a very small part of it. So this is where AI fundamentally has an impact where you're benefiting the grid, the community, evacuating, and responding better. And so we often get asked the question, are you concerned about AI and build up? I live in San Francisco. I told the story yesterday. I was dropping my son to school and there were 5 Waymos in a row ahead of me. So if you're in the car driving industry, clearly automation there is moving very quickly. And I think there's a lot we need to think about it. But I would posit that there are certain spaces like ours where AI can do this job better.
For sure. I mean, I think there are a lot of jobs that AI can do better and should do better. And I think the question also is, how do we discern which use cases need that attention and which ones not? A lot of times, when we look at innovation, is a hammer looking for a nail. I can say that. Been with MIT Media Lab over the past 8 years, and so much like cool innovation, but they're looking for always use cases where to apply it to, right? So I love that we start with the problem first, the business case first, and then sort of pull in the right tools, including AI. So with that, I'm going to move over here to Paweł and ask your perspective on what scaling means. I'm assuming you have more to say from an enterprise adoption perspective beyond climate as well. What are your thoughts?
And so, sorry. First of all, I would say that everything that the colleagues have said here is basically something like with every industrial evolution or revolution that we like have gone through the last 500 or 600 years. Same was with steam engines. Same was with other things that we developed later on. These are problems that will be solved. I agree, short-term problems will be there, but actually the thing that happened, and I really admire that, and the reason why I'm talking about it, I will reveal just in a second, is that AI has proven that it will stay like internet. It's not a let's say Bitcoin craze, because I was part of it as well. It really already changed the world. I mean, Bitcoin is here obviously, and all the cryptocurrencies, block ledgers, etc. But they did in fact not change the world as it is. This one will stay and boost our productivity as a species, basically, on a very philosophical, metaphysical way for years to come. That's for sure. That's like day and night topic. So why I'm saying that? I think that's this scalability of AI has so many shades and layers that, from my perspective, it's not about if everybody can access it right now. It's about how many applications, real life applications, can we find in both commercial applications, public applications, because those probably would have different, let's say, measurements of whether it was scaled or not. Because me pushing my, let's say, direct employees to use generative AI agents, is it a fully like scalable solution? Probably not. But us helping the governments, for example, enter the era where Europe is getting colder, us helping them to find AI's augmented solutions to, let's say, multiply the possibilities of doctors analyzing the ecologic photos, etc. I mean, 1/400 of the patients, not 10 like now. This is something that should be treated as a scalability of AI. Not only its computing power, because, I mean, I'm a very pragmatic person. For me, in a way, if AI development in a very theoretical world would stay at this level of development in terms of that meritorical layer, but it would be like force multiplied by adoption all across the board, we would really see like long-lasting development of the society as a whole, really.
Sure. Thank you for that. So I think that's a really sort of nice overview, high level perspective, sort of juxtaposing it with technologies that have, I mean, I spent 10 years in Web3, so I have a little bit of a different perspective on sort of blockchain and cryptocurrencies, of course, one perspective, one use case, the earliest one. But obviously AI has been around for 70 years at this point. It's just now in the hands of the consumers. So we're kind of seeing this massive adoption, right? Moving along the adoption curve. So Sebastian, I'm going to turn to you in a second here. And, I was talking to friends at the Silicon Valley, and it's funny because the perspective there is that the investments in data centers to aggressively build out AI have already been decided upon. So while we are here discussing what should be, how it should be, um, are we in a world where, the decision makers at the very top disregarding the climate question or, consumer privacy or really any sort of form of responsibility um, are already sort of moving forward. You are an investor. Give us your perspective.
So I don't know what's happening on the top, right? But I mean, the financial world is known that it loves quick capital gains and speculation. And that's exactly, in my opinion, what is happening, right? There's so much money being invested in AI right now, and if we ask ourselves, is it reasonable? Is it justified? I say definitely not, definitely not. But like I said, there are expectations. There are quick gains that some of those speculators want, and that's why there's so much money being pumped into AI world today. Uh, I mean, don't take it wrong. I do believe that AI might change. I'm very optimistic and I'm tech savvy, but I would love to see the world changing in the right direction thanks to technology, thanks to AI. But we're in this early adoption time where not many people understand what AI can do actually, right? There are specialists here and they live with and work with AI on a daily basis. And for them it's a daily bread. But regular people, AI, I'm sorry to say, but AI nowadays is making us only dumber and dumber,
Sure.
right? I mean, we're not using our brain as the way we used to because we have AI telling us how to get from point A to B or how to to find simple answers, which back in the days we had to use the brain, use some effort, and either look into books or later on Google, or at least try to and then select what's valuable, what's not. Today we're just consuming everything that we get in front of us. So I do believe that there is too much speculation on the financial market related to AI. I do believe that also the expectations and the speed that everything within the AI world is changing. It's difficult to combine the technology itself, but the infrastructure that has to provide it. And it's not just investments into data centers. This is also the topic I've been running a data center for over 20 years, one of the first big data centers in Poland. But and I do agree that there are a lot of environmental issues that we have to face, and I'm very happy you're actually mentioning that. But it's not just the tech over there. It's not just putting up the walls. It's the grid, right? The grid will not gonna hold, and that's why I can't justify in my head. I can't justify many of the investments, many of the decisions, many of the valuations that you can see in the Silicon Valley and everywhere around the world.
Yeah, I'm going to follow up on that actually, which is the real world impact of scaling AI. What is your perspective on it? What is the real world impact of AI?
I think the real world impact belongs to small companies, to startups, to individuals behind those startups who actually do understand why they want to build AI, why they want to build agents, and wh- which will resolve some of the very practical problems and issues. I'm running a VC fund. and I love those, to meet those companies, those founders, and learn from them what is that they really believe AI can do for the world. How can we solve the problem? So on that level, I think AI can help us a lot. Um, but we also know that technology and legislation never goes in pair, and again, talking about financial um, uh, groups or investors who only look short term. They'll push for solutions that might not be the most useful, the most helpful, and definitely the most environmental friendly, and not the most impactful. So I would rather look into the startup world, the startup ecosystem, to look for solutions, for ideas, for problems that those guys are trying to solve.
Hmm. That's interesting and fascinating. Thank you for sharing that. So that gives me some hope. Um,
Sorry that some big investors might not like me for saying that, but that's what I believe.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on. There are 8 billion people on the planet, and we are seeing greater degrees of wealth concentration, and with that is decision making, and also I guess the opportunity to disregard the vast amounts of
And
population.
if I can add something, AI should be more understandable to common people. Because if it's not, and only the specialist and the companies, the corporate will use it, then we'll actually keep growing that wealth gap. Because they will have tools they will know how to use it. They'll have those tools, and we will not give those tools to the common people who actually do need it to close that gap.
But then
Go ahead.
that's a question. How do you make sure that AI will be available to common people?
Yeah, we'll get into that. You will get into
Giving it
consumer
for free.
AI.
Given for free. Nowadays, you have to pay for Gemini,
Hundreds
Gemini
megawatts of power.
ChatGPT. You have to pay for a premium version. I think the direction it has to go, it has to be for free. And unfortunately, they'll have to find financing sources somewhere else, which probably means ads. Ads will show up at all the AI agents we're using. But maybe that will give an availability to have a free versions to the rest of the world.
So common and open source. Okay, so let's. Actually, you have a comment there,
First of all,
and can I ask you to keep your mic close to your mouth? Thank you very much.
it's music to my ears to hear an investor basically, highlighting concerns around speculation. Uh, and one thing is, of course, if there was another open AI coming to you, would you invest or not?
No.
Because this is the same conversation I had with a group of investors yesterday. There's a Wall Street Journal article which talks about how this is the last decade for creating wealth as an entrepreneur. Um, and
Till when is this decade again? Sorry.
the article says this is the last decade for creating wealth as an entrepreneur.
No, I mean, until when does this decade last? So everybody knows and we can make
I don't know. I don't know. Oh, I do.
It's 2030.
2030. All right, we got 4 years, guys.
And I believe in that, given the wealth gap that has already been created. If you look at the robotics revolution in the 1990s, in the industrial robotics, then of course the internet revolution. So there were a lot of proponents of robotics, industrial robotics, who said robotics will end up creating more jobs, different jobs. Yes, it did. But for every one job that got created in the industrial belt of the United States, 3 jobs got lost. So between 1990 to 2010, there were 330,000 jobs lost in the United States, in the entire industrial belt.
But there's also more people in the US now in terms of population growth.
But they're not working in the same jobs. So that belt is also the belt, that pushed back in the form of the political changes that we are seeing today, right? There's a massive wealth gap that got created. And this time what we are seeing an exponentially higher chance of exacerbating that wealth gap. And it's not good for anyone, even for us entrepreneurs, right? So when I see investors speaking in that terms, it's actually music to my ears. And that's why there are some good use cases coming out of it, as Arvind talked about, as we work on helping seed companies launch climate resilient seeds faster and cheaper into the market using AI. But then I don't think we require those LLMs for that. So going back to the problem first, then the technology, what can solve it. So we don't use LLM, we use simple models. We use LLMs for some other task, but the task which has been the most productive for us, the most impactful for us, we use simple render forest models, and that does a great job of giving productivity boost to farmers.
Thank you for that. Yeah, and we all like you, Sebastian. So I guess I hope you got that. Dr. Kathrin.
Regarding the real world impact, it's geopolitical, geosocial, and just as Sebastian addressed it, it is one of the most fundamental things that all should be doing. Yeah, is supporting AI literacy and data literacy for everybody. And I really don't go into, let's say, oh, we will just not be having jobs, because we see the first industrial revolution, the steam engine came, and then we reskill ourselves and we find new ways of doing things. And then the second industrial revolution came with electricity. And yes, a lot of jobs were completely given away, yeah, to this particular new form of automation. But then again, we found a way. So right now we are in the fourth industrial revolution. So what we need is that, imagine we still have 800 million people in certain geolocations in Africa and Asia that have no access to the internet. And that creates precisely what Sebastian said, this disbalance of power. So that's why we also invest in NGOs, in bringing about, that free skilling to everybody. Because imagine if you can bring those ideas and the innovation power that only humans have. And AI just simply becomes also dumb if it doesn't have organic data. And we should do everything we can to ensure that human beings still keep creating that human data, protecting artists, protecting innovation. And maybe there is a big, huge wealth displacement, I agree. But I wouldn't think that is so fast in 4 years. Yeah, for that, I hope not something else happens. But what it would definitely happen, is that through the AI bubble that we see today, that is so many startups based on data that's not even their IP, on data that's not against, let's say, it's against responsible AI, that's not following governance. So that means that you have functionalities of companies that are building the data that shouldn't be. So the important thing is then to have explainability, to have transparency. That's why I completely support Sebastian on this. But also then to bring this this education from sea level all the way to, for example, our own children. So it is important that we see the impact of social media that it has. There's Generation Alpha that is the first generation that's grown up completely digital for the households that have, of course, internet access. And right now we see that they're the ones that have the biggest impact on what would be the negative use, because we need to see here in the real world impact that there's unfortunately the negative side of criminals using it for deepfakes, for misinformation, disinformation. That's why we at the UN Support Action Center are fighting for this with education, because it is important now that there's so much synthetic data being generated from all different type of models that we have a clear understanding and governance. Can you trust what exactly has come up? I read in a newspaper yesterday that some CEO actually, not far away from where we are sitting, just simply got scammed by exactly a deep fake. So we need to find also those ways, how to particularly keep the governance with humans on the loop.
Great. Thank you. Yes.
Sure. If I can connect two dots. One, I had a comment about AI being available to the people, to everyone, right? And I remember 5 years ago when we started the company, I attended my first board meeting with all these fire chiefs in the US. And I waited 2 hours and I got introduced as Pano Al. And I'm looking around going, who's Al, right? 5 years ago, AI was not part of the lexicon for most of the people. But today, it doesn't matter where you are in the US or where you are in the world, by and large, you have heard of AI or are using AI in some capacity. Now, in terms of commercial models, that's a different thing. But I want to touch on the financing part of the equation. I've grown up in Silicon Valley since 2020, since 2005. So I saw the tail end of the first .com crash. And then we've seen a whole bunch of hype cycles since. And I think it's hard to go figure out if the valuation of OpenAI at 600, 800 billion is worth it. I wouldn't be a betting man there. what I'd be looking for is it really adding value? Is it disrupting industries? And you can see industries getting disrupted literally on a weekly basis, right? And especially with some of these models. So I would look at it from the standpoint of, are people benefiting? Are companies benefiting? And is there a real disruption that's going on, right? Um, and the second thing that's connected to this is capital from investors is important in this space. So we talked about scale, but scale is also important from how large a model you can build. So we've raised 90 million. For us, one of the moats is how big a data set we're able to capture. So we have the largest data set of fires across many different regions. Now, I'm sure most of you don't think about fires. I do. And detecting fires in Montana, where there's snow on the ground, in certain environmental conditions is very different to the Australian outback, right? No different to self-driving cars in Davos during Bluff Week compared to what you have in Silicon Valley. It's all about data set. It's all about how much patent recognition. So that's where I think capital is very important. Scale is very important. And as a company, we have to continue to keep building that.
For sure. Yeah, just 1 second there, Sebastian. I want to get one comment from Paolo here, and maybe open up the room. You know, Davos is one place where pretty much anybody in the audience could also be on the panel. So let me just get one comment from Paolo here, and we'd love to kind of have the second segment of this session is much more interactive. But point well noted, we're going to come back to policy, we're going to come back to governance, and we're going to come back to responsible AI. So Paolo, your comment on real world impact in 1 minute or less.
Yes, I can tell you one very personal impact. I mean, I won't be disclosing the commercial facts. I have a son, 10 years old boy. He's on autism spectrum, and he has a lot of, let's say, challenges in terms of learning, because a lot of stuff is very abstract to him. He understands that, but it's abstract topic. It's not interesting to him enough to get focused for enough time. So I can tell you that with the use of AI, with my help initially, but then without my supervisor or whatever, he was able to create his own like space within the chat GPT in a way that he basically gets the material to learn 4th grade, 5th grade mathematics, history, Polish lessons in a way that is attractive to him, that basically connects his interest. I mean, he can learn mathematics on the case of trains because ChatGPT devised the way to explain to him like multiplication tables on the trains and carriages, because this is something that gets him focused. So if you ask me what's the real life application, give it to everybody, and everybody can be having like common share access to the knowledge. I know that you said that it makes us dumber, because I agree. I mean, I'm using it all the time to write me an email, and I don't think about it anymore. So I agree. But on the other hand, I mean, in a way of, as a society, getting the access to the common distributed knowledge. I mean, come on. What else is there? This is something.
Yeah,
push.
totally. Yeah. The whole gatekeeping around knowledge is a brand new idea in human civilization, isn't it? We always used to share knowledge, but perhaps in smaller tribes. But this is beautiful, Pavel.
I'm really positive about it. I mean, it can kill us, kind of can come. I mean, I think so, but still, I'm really positive. It's something. I mean, I've been there for almost 20 years, and that's the really first, like, maybe apart from internet itself, like first real revolution that I'm living through.
Love it. Sounds great. All right, Paul. Actually, sorry, Sebastian. We'll take your question or comment real quick, and then I'm going to ask the lady here.
I just want to say that I 100% agree with you. Giving a common access to knowledge is one of the most beautiful things. And this is actually something I naively believed, 25 years ago, that internet will do that. It gave us in a completely wrong way, right? And now access to ChatGPT, Gemini, or Perplexity, or any of the other models is amazing. But it's the question how we prompt. What kind of knowledge do we expect? And this is probably something that we will have to look at from perspective of early children education. I mean, this is where everything changes and everything starts. And if our kids are fed with no social media, so stupid that that we can't
Stick to-
justify why they're spending so much time there, then also the questions they're going to ask ChatGPT will be exactly on that same quality level. So I think it's more a philosophical question how to introduce internet, ChatGPT, or whatever tools to the children, and how to educate people so they get the best out of it, not the worst out of it. But same with a knife. You can use it to cut the bread, or you can use it to kill someone, right? And it's all about education at the end of the day.
Beautiful. Love it. Thank you very much. This is getting deeper and deeper. We have around 20 more minutes, so I want to open it up for questions. And I have a question right here. And y'all get ready. We're going to come to you.
Thank you. So,
Please introduce yourself first.
well, I'm Gabriele as well. I'm here in a private capacity, but I have 8 years of experience in defense, cybersecurity, AI, and all that good stuff. So, hence my question. So, in the pace of scaling up AI, what are the biggest risks you see when it comes to actual security? Is it keeping pace, the cybersecurity, with the actual scaling? I know this is yeah,
It's a great question. So yeah, I think I'm going to call upon Dr. Kathrin. But before I do that, I want to share the following. I was this morning at a breakfast session with Axis, which is a cybersecurity company, discussing exactly this. And they're looking at what AI means. And it's interesting because for insurance companies, this is yet another opportunity to also scale cybersecurity products and insurance products, because the portfolio of risk has just blown up, right?
I can add something that, sorry to interrupt the flow, but on this insurance products, I can tell you one thing from our commercial experience. I mean, you are now in the, let's say, tender to offer imaging recognition for the one of the health institutions in Poland. But the tender requirement is that they require a very massive industry insurance. And let me tell you, nobody on the market does that in terms of AI modeling. So it had to go to the center, to London, for specific analysts to analyze if they can even touch this. Because basically they would be taking responsibility for third party, being the patients, probably suing the provider of the service of AI modeling for wrong recognition of disease or whatever. So there is a massive multi-layered wall behind that in terms of So
So no, but people are working on it. Dr. Kathrin.
I would need to answer your question in 3 parts. Yeah, the first part is that it depends on the particular infrastructure that you have. So we should not forget that the entire internet is still based on Linux. And what a lot of people don't see is that AI is actually just part of that entire software infrastructure architecture. And so it's just an application layer on the top. So the important thing is also to see the basis, the particular computer programming systems that also have regular mathematical base algorithms, non-AI, that are exactly seeking for particular behaviors that do not, are one-to-one to the specific business processes or IT processes that you have. So for example, authentication. So we have two-factor authentication. We all have that on our phones. Is that the person that is able to log in? We have also what would be then a recognition of biodata in order to give that person access to one area. And we see our face scan in our phones for giving what would be our transfer of money free. So that's one aspect. So it depends, how is that structure? Number two is that when you look at AI, there's millions of different type of algorithms with the data in order to, let's say, create what would be the analysis of where all the weaknesses of the current IT infrastructure are. So for example, where are the doors and the windows open in what would be in Microsoft systems or AWS systems or Google systems, or the particularly middleware that you're using, or data systems, to mask and pretend to be someone else, which is at the current state still very difficult. That's why social engineering is one of the number one ways and keys to get into, because the technology of the current HPCs do it. 3, once you move to quantum computing, we're talking about something else. That's why you should have also a PQC strategy in order to protect yourself. Because when you're using Shor's algorithm running on our computers, you can break two-factor authentication in less than 1 minute. So just that imagine. So it makes it obsolete. So that's why you see from across the pond, they have a quantum crypto strategy. It's already established by their administration since thinking about it already over a decade and already in place now, because they know the potential. Let's say when it comes into the not so friendly hands, they would have in that aspect. So that's why it is important that you are looking now to move on from the classical cybersecurity that usually a backpack has into what would be then quantum PQC security.
Thank you. All right. Wonderful. More questions from the audience. Please go ahead. And please introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Cameron from Davos Club, and I have a question. There is still a chance to avoid the danger that the companies from $1 trillion AI loot, which are Microsoft and few others, and just send the money around and, like Sebastian told, is pumping the market. They will control, knowing that also the Sebastian told that people using the ChatGPT, etc., are going dumber because the scientists are already confirmed it. That is, and also the fact that nowadays, like 90% of data on videos, etc., on the internet is made by AI, that they will control the future, the news, and everything information people got when they can now already buy the competitors, destroy the competitors at whatever startup they can invest in startup and make it go down or something like that. Is there is still a chance to avoid this is even better for all of humans in the future?
Great question. How do we avoid a dystopian future? Question for everyone.
IT sovereignty.
The what, sorry?
IT sovereignty.
Yeah, digital sovereignty. I would agree.
Sunburst,
I think
Was
scorching.
somebody going to say Starlink? I was just told about that in the green room.
I would say it's more fundamental, which is value-based entrepreneur,
You're
right?
super practical. I love it.
So I think we are moving into a time where we're losing that values-based entrepreneurship. Like, why are you starting a company? What is it for? Right? That's one. All the entrepreneurs think like that. Like, why? What is the impact I'm going to create on this world? Then, of course, we'll avoid the bigger problems. Second is the weakening of institutions. Right? We are seeing around the world now. So, how can we re-strengthen those institutions, which were supposed to, protect us? One of the examples being CFPB. I mean, it's in the fintech example, which was supposed to protect fintech like consumers in the US. If, let's say, you get engaged in a dispute with a credit card company and they're charging you exorbitant fees on interest rates and so on and so forth, you can appeal to them and they'll step in and investigate the company. And that kept a lot of finance industry in check for the last 15, 20 years. Now that is gone, right? So we are seeing a similar thing like weakening of democratic institutions, which makes it a bit more dangerous. So it's about like, how do we elect those policymakers that promise us that they're going to re-strengthen those institutions constitutionally?
I think we as citizens also have a big responsibility here. Companies are always going to be profit-minded. Yes, there's going to be values and a broader agenda in mind. Investors are also going to focus on the investing lens. But we need to push back and go back to some level of saying, I'm not going to get a lot of my news through Reels and TikToks. I'm going to go and spend time thinking with more original thought. And I think it needs to come all the way down at the grassroots level. And I love your example of how AI can be customized to your individual child's need, right? Where I think AI can be applied really effectively, but if people are using it to reduce their thinking, right? When we were all in school, we had to write our own essays, but we're not sitting there getting a structure and then adding stuff to it. So I would also just put on the table that we as a society have a role here, because if we push back on some of this, it'll mean that the commercial models also need to evolve.
That requires time from the parents or they're actually teaching the kids, right? Attention. As we know, the attention that's something we're lacking today. Even not just the kids, but the parents don't pay attention to their kids. So the kids could pretty much grow up by themselves on social media platforms.
Easy to give them screens, right?
Screens, right?
But I would also like it's a vicious circle on that. Like, if this were the case, then smoking would have solved the smoking problem, right? Sure.
Oh no, I'm not naive. I'm not naive in the here saying, look, it's easy to go watch YouTube and Instagram and all this stuff. I'm being philosophical in the sense that I know it's hard, it's a drug, and we also have to start to push back.
It's so interesting. I try to avoid that intervention or interjection in the earlier part of the panel here because I didn't want to throw in too much, but it just makes me wonder, do we need new models of capitalism?
Yes.
I would agree that because I see how difficult it is for, let's say, you have a startup wanting to do sustainable tech, to do something good for everybody. So it's so difficult to see how investment funds could get transferred to these companies, particularly when it's an entrepreneur coming from a developing nation that actually needs particularly that support. So how do we bring the funneling from the right investors to the right talent? And I see there really a difficulty right now.
Yeah. And I think that's partly the answer to your question. I know this is a triggering question, but here we have a question here.
I like very much comments. Andrei Voronenko from Fontobel. I like very much your comments about the child, 10 years child and GPT use. So I try to follow Eloise's example and I ask artificial intelligence, announcing what we are discussing, what is the best question to the panel? And they told me the question is that in the next 24 months, what are a couple of artificial intelligence use cases you expect to measurably change outcomes of ordinary people in Europe, jobs, healthcare, education, public services, and what metric would be worked? So what do you expect? Yeah.
As a human in the loop, I override it. And the questions I asked, I think, are the more fundamental questions than what ChatGPT just told you. And this is an example of why we need humans in the loop.
Actually, I have an answer for that. I mean, because I'm a very big fan of getting knowledge of all kinds, from all the sources. So recently I dug into the rabbit hole of pharmaceutical research in general. How long does it take? Also from the investor standpoint as well, to understand how much time does they need to like develop a new potential, let's say, antibiotic or whatever. So basically, the recent development, also in your area of quantum computing, proved that they already, in the last 12 months, identified 6,000 artificial potential antibiotics, thanks to the current state of development models, which normally would take them 20 years to narrow to that 6,000 compounds. And I'd expect that basically, which is not speaking so much about, in the next 24 months, with that level of development of the models and the data sets mostly right now, because probably algorithms are not developing as fast as the data sets and the computing power, we will have some very, very much expected breakthroughs in medicine and in things that apply really to our lives, like solving the diseases that we cannot solve right now, like multiple sclerosis, for example, or different stuff like that.
And with a European lens in mind, with an aging population, I think the idea of getting access to better healthcare that's readily available for folks. I love the idea of vaccines. I think we've seen it with COVID and other things where, and cancer research, this is where large data sets can crunch it. So hugely optimistic around what will play out around healthcare. I also think in terms of society, if we can do it in the right way, access to knowledge and democratizing that is another area. I remember I was driving down 101, which is one of the main freeways in San Francisco, and the OpenAI ad is a car that's broken down. So it's a car that's broken down with a couple, and the lid is up, and the smoke coming through. And the use case is not this what ChatGPT is doing. It's when you have a problem, you can learn much more about it. So that's where I think this idea of getting access to knowledge to many different folks, from youth to broader, and doing it customized to your needs, I'm very optimistic on.
Just one last thing on that. To me, it would be creating citizen developers. Imagine if everyone in this room became an AI expert, particularly the aging population, because you all have problems from something trivial to something complex. So I read about a lady from Japan, and she's a senior citizen. So she learned AI in order to create an app, particularly to serve all the problems of senior citizens in Japan. Or a person from a particular park of a forest ranger, park ranger, had to create several type of what would be different reports, what would happen with the state. And he learned exactly how to create his own agent in order to have the report faster and be able then to analyze and share all that information. He shared that not with other AI experts, but with other park rangers. Everybody wanted to use his app, became viral. So that would be, I think, one of the best use cases is the ones that we would all be able to create as citizen developers with an AI knowledge.
That's super cool.
If I can add one more thing, and I can't agree more with my co-panelists. That'll be amazing. It's in the perfect world. That something that is like we said, music to our ears. Also, another thing that would be great, but AI might give us also the tool to simplify the tasks and processes that are today too difficult for some of the people around the world, and which actually by definitions exclude them from some sort of source of income, for example, right? If we simplify and their jobs, or maybe simplify the tasks that then will be achievable for them, we can give them a new source of income, maybe. I don't know, it's just my thought, but we're talking about ideal world over here right now, so maybe this.
Yeah. Thank you. We have 4 minutes left. I hope you guys have a few perspectives, and Kathrin didn't mean you when she mentioned senior citizens. But any final questions here? We can do a quick, fire question round over here if there are any burning questions in the room, and if not, I'll just take a final perspective from the panelists. Okay, if not, then I promise to come back to policy and governance. And Dr. Kathrin, you kind of mentioned it pretty much in every comment that you made, that we need responsible governance mechanisms. Arvind, you talked about, and Himanshu talked about the weakening of our democratic institutions and the fact that power is eroding from that. The protectors are turning on us. So how do you thrive and survive in a world like this? I love the idea of mounting I guess, citizen-centered, citizen-focused, decentralized alternatives to the big six that control our information and what is fed to us in social media. What is your a quick thought around how that could be mitigated? So maybe I could start with you, Pano, or we could just go down the line here.
So if I understand this a bit loaded question properly, so how do we find ourselves? And I will be speaking as a CFO of the group that both invests and implements such solutions. So let's say from the commercial standpoint, I think we are trying to apply good old consultancy approach, basically finding again the reasoning behind applying the AI solutions to find our way. Because we can go to different government institutions and they will ask, what can you do for us? I mean, we are not asking them what can we do for them, but what applications would be close to the citizens, because you are serving citizens. Let's find together something that we can do, simplify, automate, because this is the scale that you're having. On the commercial end, I would say basically, what does it differ from, we have big data sets. Let's do a bit of consultants. Let's find what you are processing the most, and let's find low-hanging fruits with the AI, because they will be basically providing you automated analysis. So we are trying to be pragmatic in that. So that's the way to probably find the common language with people and organizations that are, let's say, less aware of the capabilities of AI in its current state. So that would be
Thank you. So consulting citizens, so 30-second each. I just want to
Yeah.
close on time.
I think the need and the problem that you're solving is critically important. In our case, we serve both governments and private. I was here 2 years ago, spoke in Congress on climate and AI. There is no climate on the agenda right now, right? It's not something that government leaders are, private sector leaders are. So you need to figure out how you're going to actually solve that problem. And in our case, we build that coalition between private and public. And right now, a lot of the business is from private, but we're solving a need that benefits many.
Public-private partnerships. Got it.
I think Norway has the answer. Can you guess
We
why?
also have the oil.
No, because They are one of the few economies that got rich very soon, right? But they made sure that the resources or the wealth created from the oil boom was redistributed into the population. Look at the HDI, Human Development Indicator scores, right? People are happy. Everyone has great education, but not everyone was working in the oil industry, right? So how do we adopt the Norwegian model of development into AI?
Got it. So social justice, social responsibility, responsible mechanisms of governance.
In that we're able then to give everybody's data to be their own IP, similar what Denmark did. And he brought the IP rights to the face of all their citizens. And I think by creating that particular governance, starting for every one of us and also governments, yeah, as their name says, truly come up to create that particular traceability. As we say in German, the red thread on explaining where exactly the data that all different companies are using and why not, and that everybody's digital rights are established that way and followed.
Great, thank you. So also human rights, digital rights, data sovereignty, identity.
Let's end it a bit controversial. How can we control a next species, next generation species that probably will be the first species in the history of humankind that is smarter than humankind, right? So we can come up with any ideas, but maybe, it's already somewhere out there overthinking that. But I think that from the governance perspective, I think it's very important that we remember about our identity. There was a question about security, and I think this is something we have to remember. We have one identity, and it's very easy to lose it and very hard to gain it. And we should do everything in our power within all the development of AI by governments, by companies to come up with solutions that would help us prevent our identity and take responsibility for all the actions taken by every individual.
Thank you very, very much. So that's proofing and scenario planning. With that, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us. We hope this seeded some thoughts and reflections. It's a pleasure to be a host. I'm Navroop Sahdev, and we will close off here. Of course, the panelists are available. Grab them. They are here before they head out. And thanks again for joining us.